In this video, I will show you 4 video games that absolutely blew me out of the water, at least at the time I played them for the very first time. I am pleased to announce that this is going to be an interesting video, because all 4 of my picks are very different video games, and they all blew my mind for very different reasons. Abracadabra, press the like button, press the subscribe button. I have gameplay playlists for all 4 of these video games on my channel if you want to check them out. Comment below a video game and why it blew your mind. Or just simply type Brink so we can all cry together. I'm not kidding when I say the first video games I ever played were absolute bangers. The first one was Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, given to me on a CD by a friend from school. It set me up for a lifelong addiction to zoo-type games and I guess video games in general. The second game must have been Age of Empires. I think it was given to me by my mom's colleague's son. I don't know who you are, but you are an absolute legend as well. However, the first entry on our list is going to be the third game I've ever played, or technically an expansion pack for that game. The same friend that gave me Jurassic Park Operation Genesis said he had an even better game and I could play it the next week and I'm over. I told him so did I, so I brought him Age of Empires and he gave me Zoo Tycoon 2. I was such a little shit. The moment I've seen Zoo Tycoon 2 on his computer screen, without even comprehending what genre of video game I was seeing, I simply proclaimed, haha, the game that I brought is much better than yours. Don't get me wrong, Age of Empires is such a classic. AoE 2 even more. But I didn't play Age of Empires for literally thousands of hours like I did Zoo Tycoon 2 after that. However, Zoo Tycoon 2 in and of itself didn't blow me out of the water per se. It was actually one of its expansions. Zoo Tycoon 2 had 4 expansions which were all, dare I say, excellent in their own regards. Except African Adventures, of course. No, I'm not gonna elaborate. Maybe in a different video. I remember yearning for the Marine Mania expansion the most. You couldn't buy these games in my country, and they were super expensive to order from abroad, so please do understand that at the time everything had to be torrented. My father couldn't download this expansion for some reason, so I had to wait for my father's friends who were more computer literate to help me. I remember the day I downed an entire energy drink after school and I fast walked home. Like that scene in Malcolm in the Middle. To my absolute dismay, my father's friends downloaded the expansion but couldn't somehow mount the image to install it. I cried. After hours, I messed around with my PC so much, somehow I managed to properly mount the image. And I saw the install screen for Marine Mania. I almost cried again. Zoo Tycoon 2 Marine Mania only introduced 20 animals, but it made the water super realistic looking at the time. Similarly to what World of Warcraft Cataclysm did, I guess. And you could also dive underwater finally. You could train some animals through these fun minigames to participate in marine animal shows and make money faster through guest donations. But the really amazing thing about Marine Mania were the so-called hybrid exhibits. If you didn't encircle the entire tank with a tank wall, you could actually terraform the ground underwater, making it possible to design almost 3D exhibits. They were hybrid exhibits because you could have an underwater part and an on-the-ground part for your, turtles, otters, and sea lions. This technology wasn't super crazy at the time, but you have to understand, even 20 years later, games like Jurassic World Evolution 2 are still worse than Marine Mania was. All the underwater exhibits you place down are uneditable and completely sterile. Even though Zoo Tycoon 2 had an expansion which introduced jeep rides, skytram rides and bridges in the same expansion, and another expansion where you could literally dig out fossils yourself and create dinosaurs, Zoo Tycoon 2 Marine Mania was the one expansion that blew me straight out of the water. Here's another game from school. I had a friend in school that I constantly annoyed and trolled all day. We were like Eric Cartman and Kyle from South Park. I remember all of us made fun of him for playing a game called something like WoW. I had no idea what it was, so naturally I constantly made fun of him. Until I tried it. I remember the late school night I decided to download the 1-week demo of World of Warcraft. It was a week after the Wrath of the Lich King expansion released, so the main menu had this frozen undead dragon and this awesome soundtrack blasting on full volume. I made a Tauren Hunter because after Jurassic Park and Zoo Tycoon 2, you know I loved animals. I remember fumbling around on that character and deleting it when I couldn't get back to the starter. I played a night elf in the awesome forests of Teldrassil and a troll in the Dust Bowl of Durotar. I signed up for another week of the demo with a different email address. There was this other friend of mine who also made fun of my original friend for playing WoW, so I got this second friend to play with me. And I'm not kidding, it was so much fun, even though I did not do one single thing right. I casted all my spells from my spellbook. I didn't know you could equip stuff, so I didn't equip any new armor and weapons that I got from quests. I didn't complete all the quests, only the ones I could decipher, because remember, everything was in English. I never even played an RPG beforehand, let alone an MMO-RPG, so all of this was new to me. But even if I had played an RPG before, you know how mind-blowing it was to see your friend in front of you, in-game like it was some Second Life or something. No loading screens between zones, oh, the first time going into Orgrimmar. But none of these facts would have been enough if the gameplay loop wasn't as addictive as it was. And let me tell you, it was. I'm not kidding, it was crack. So once again, I made fun of a friend for playing a video game, and then I went and I played that video game for thousands of hours. I just know a lot of people are going to hate me or even skip the video for including this video game. I mean, what else is there to say? You've heard it 1,000 times, you've probably experienced it yourself. Literally, the only note I placed down next to Minecraft as to why it blew my mind was placing blocks, lol. It might not be anything special nowadays, but you have to understand, even just playing the free Minecraft multiplayer servers in the browser was like opening a door to Narnia. Instead of playing the level, you made the level. At the time when Minecraft came out, I moved abroad with my parents. I was in a weird place mentally. I remember watching the Yogscast, and I don't think any other YouTube series gave me more joy or will ever give me more joy in the future than that Yogscast series did. I had about 20 pounds of allowance to my name, but since we were never particularly well off, I hesitated a lot to buy Minecraft. I never bought anything using a bank card online. Minecraft was my first online purchase. I remember the night like it was yesterday. My parents went to work in Tesco because that was the only type of job they could get at the time to support us. So I just felt so bad for buying Minecraft for 15 pounds. But I still remember that first dirt house I built in the side of the mountain. Back then, beds weren't added just yet, so there was this addictive gameplay loop of throughout the day, go out and collect resources outside throughout the night, dig underground inside. Wolves and beds were added shortly after, and many people say it's all been downhill since then. Similarly to World of Warcraft, where I didn't play an RPG beforehand, let alone an MMO-RPG, I never played a survival game before Minecraft. Hell, it's almost like Minecraft invented the genre, right? So not only was it mind-blowing that you could alter the entire world completely block by block, not only was the world infinite more so than World of Warcraft was, but it also had a really fun survival gameplay loop. At least back then, you didn't know anything about it, so it was fun. How to survive your first night videos popped up everywhere on YouTube, even though all you technically had to do was dig a hole and bury yourself in it like some sort of an intelligent ostrich. It didn't matter, we didn't know any better, we were scared as shit. So once you hit the enter world button, you better start gathering building blocks and coal before that first nightfall. Final game on the list is a special game that in many regards is more special than the previous entries on this list. It's also a game that many of you had not even heard of. So dare I say, a hidden gem? All of you have heard of Zoo Tycoon, World of Warcraft and Minecraft, and many of you played these games. But have any of you even played Against the Storm? Roguelite City Builder is simply a marketing term they use because it's too complicated to explain how amazing this video game is. To give you a little context, the year before I played Against the Storm, I had to experience some truly frustrating video games. Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, a video game in its alpha stage, released at full price as a full game. Jurassic World Evolution, the herald proclaiming, "Zoo games are dead." No, I'm not gonna comment on Planet Zoo, thank you very much. And I also played The Hunter Call of the Wild, where if you were to buy all of the stupid reskins and low effort DLCs, you would be better off buying the 30 best indie video games on Steam right now instead. Against the Storm was a breath of fresh air, and I didn't even like city builders. I completely forgot that I even played one, namely Banished, 10 years prior. Just like any game, it took a bit to get used to Against the Storm. It's once again addictive gameplay loop of creating settlements and micromanaging more than Jeff Bezos leading a group of dwarves. The game looks awesome like Warcraft 3. It is extremely replayable because of its roguelike elements, but these are not even the reasons why Against the Storm blew my fucking mind. Against the Storm is the first video game that does tutorials right. All the information is available in game, so you don't need to browse this stupid fandom wiki on a second monitor. And let me reiterate, Against the Storm is so complex. Pokemon couldn't even teach you about egg breeding mechanics, and Against the Storm teaches you almost everything that you need to know. Against the Storm has an extremely user-intuitive user interface. To create any resource, like flour for instance, there are multiple buildings that can produce everything, okay? So some buildings, like the windmill, is better at producing flour than the supplier, for instance. And you can see this because the recipe at the windmill has more stars than the recipe at the supplier. Easy. If you hover over any icon in any game menu or the inventory, it will tell you which buildings can produce. It will also highlight the buildings you already picked up. And these are just some examples of the excellent UI. I was so disappointed when during a terror raid in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, half of the abilities or moves did not work, or they didn't work as intended. It got so bad that after a while, instead of playing the fucking game, I had to first test the game to see if some basic functionality or mathematical calculation was actually implemented by the developers in the first place or not. I completely lost this thing that I call developer trust. In Against the Storm, there are truly some really weird synergies between cornerstones and perk buffs, but once you understand the basic mechanics of the game, they work every single time. No testing required. This means, as a player, I can almost always plan ahead, even when things get tough. And let me tell you, things get tough. The game eases you in with its difficulty. Technically, there are 24 difficulty levels, and the farther you progress in the main story, the higher difficulty level you must set. I'm not gonna lie, I torrented Against the Storm the first time I played it. I loved it so much, I bought the game at full price, purposefully when it wasn't on sale, on Steam, not on some bullshit reseller site, because I knew that I would get my money's worth, and boy, did I get my money's worth. Almost all of the content released for Against the Storm over the past 3 years has been free content added by the developers. Recently, they added an expansion that was only a little bit cheaper at the time than the full game, with only about as much content as a big patch. Honestly, we didn't really care in the community because the common consensus was that we received so much free content anyways over the years that we would be willing to buy the game a second time, let alone buy the DLC, of course. But you know what the developers did, the madman? They added even more content to the DLC months after it already released. If Against the Storm has 1,000 fans, I am one of them. If Against the Storm has 1 fan, he is me. If Against the Storm has 0 fans, I am dead. I hope you enjoyed the video with these 4 games that blew my mind. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the video game playlist. In fact, there's 2 on the screen right now. I have lost my job recently, so any little helps to push my channel further up the algorithm scale, I guess. If you comment below a video game that blew your mind and why it did so, I promise I will read it. This has been Two Siders. See you in the next one.